Hi everyone, it's Tarrant.
And Stella here from Meeple University on the Dice Tower. Thanks for joining us.
Today we'll be teaching you how to play Davy Jones Locker, The Kraken Wakes. Game designed by Zachary Jacob and published by Putcat Games. We are using a prototype copy of the game here, and so the rules and components may not be final.
Let's get to it.
Davy Jones Locker is a cooperative seafaring adventure game in 2 acts. In Act 1, players explore, facing enemies and the elements, resolving encounters and exploring ports, all to get the most gold and best equipment to build up their ships for the forthcoming battle. In Act 2, players are swept into the Whirlpool and face a battle to the death against the fearsome Kraken. Defeat the Kraken before all the ships are sunk, and the players will win the game. To set up, each player chooses a ship and takes the ship board and these components. 1 cube in each colour, the D8 ship mini and explore and market tokens matching your ship, and 2 gold. These cubes track your stats, and you'll place each cube into the matching stat track on its starting location, which is the darker coloured space. The green sail represents how fast you can move in the game. The grey attack represents how hard you can attack enemies. Red repair represents how well you can repair your ship. And purple hull represents your defense against attacks. Most elements of the game are color-coded by these 4 colors. For example, your ship will be stronger than all of the others in the statistic of your color. Place your D8, which represents your integrity or the health of your ship, at 8 in this slot of your board. And place your ship mini into the colored port area which matches your color. Except in the case of purple, where you'll place in the shallows outside that port. Each player takes their ship's matching coloured ability cards, looks at them and then chooses the one they wish to play with, placing it Act 1 side up in this slot of the board. This describes a special ability which your ship will be able to take in this act. On the main board, take the 2 Shipwreck tokens and place 1 in the Northern Shipwreck X and 1 in the Southern Shipwreck X. Then prepare the game's decks of cards. For all of the Market, Explore, Treasure and Shipwreck decks, simply shuffle them face down. For the Event, Whirlpool and Black Spot decks, draw 6, 10 and 3 cards respectively and shuffle them into face down stacks, returning the rest to the box. And for the Open Sea cards, first separate them into 2 decks based on their fronts, the Kraken upgrades showing the Kraken and the rest. Set aside 4, 6 or 8 of these cards at 2, 3 or 4 players, and then shuffle 10, 9 or 8 Kraken upgrades face down into the remaining Open Sea cards. Then place the set aside cards on top of the deck and return any other Kraken upgrades to the box. The Kraken will be set up in Act 2, but for now place its starting health cube according to player count. Keep the remaining components nearby for later use. Choose a first player, either at random or by preference, and you're now ready to play. Act 1 is played in a maximum of 6 rounds, and during those rounds players will be interacting with this map as much as they can to build up the strengths of their ships. Each round begins by drawing and resolving an event card. Then, starting from the first player and going clockwise around the table, each player will take 1 turn. Act 1 will continue until there is no longer a card to draw in the event phase, or until the players are unfortunate enough to have drawn 3 Kraken upgrades from the Open Sea deck. At that point, play will proceed to Act 2. The first step of each round is to draw an event card. There are a few different ways these may resolve. Some of them provide a special rule which applies to this round only. The card would be discarded at the start of the next event phase. Some result in the placement of tiles on the map, which will remain in place for the rest of Act 1 and provide their own special rules. Whenever this occurs, you'll find the tile or tiles that matches the card and you'll place it onto the matching image on the board. Others will add additional ships to the board. Here, for example, naval ships will go into the spaces that show the naval icon. These events have special instructions for how to move or resolve these ships ahead of subsequent event phases. And so, when you are resolving the event phase, look for any of these existing cards first. After the event, each player takes one turn. On a turn, a player can take 3 actions. There are 9 different actions available, and a player cannot take a single action type more than once per turn. The first action is sail, and this is how you'll move around the board. Your ship's sail statistic is the number of sail points you have available to spend on the action, so here it's 4. Sailing from your current hex to an adjacent one costs 1 sail. The entire connected shallow space around each port, as well as the 2 connected hexes of each port, count as a single space. So you could, for example, spend 2 sail to go 1, 2. You may freely sail through or land on spaces containing other ships, whether friend or foe. And any sail points spent entering a hex containing trade winds requires the player to move an extra space within those winds. So a player could not simply take this move, but would have to travel with the winds, either to here or to here. Moving within the winds from here would result in 2 moves that way. But the player moves only 1 hex when leaving the winds. When taking movement in an open sea hex, which is any hex except for the shallows and the ports on each corner of the board, then before your next action, you must draw and resolve an open sea card. Representing your adventures at sea, these have a range of positive and negative effects. Some are persistent cards which you'll place above your ship board and resolve until the card is gone. If the card remains in place for a certain number of turns, you can count them down using one of the Black League dice. Others will require you to immediately make a roll of some type. In this case, it's a cannon roll. Roll dice equal to your current number on that statistic, count up the number of successes, with each skull and crossbones representing a success, and then resolve the effect accordingly. These dice have a range of 0s, 1s and 2s. If you draw a Kraken upgrade card, then place it next to the Kraken board and discard the top card of the Whirlpool deck back to the box. This will both make the Kraken stronger and will reduce the number of rounds you have to defeat it. Your second action, available only if you're at a port, is to explore that port, and you'll draw the top card of the port's Explore deck and then resolve it in the same way that you would for an open sea card where you make a roll. If you roll enough successes to resolve either the top or second effect on the card, then it is considered a successful exploration, and you place your coloured exploration token in that port. You are not allowed to explore a port which has your exploration token, meaning you'll have to go to another port and explore before you can come back and explore here again. However, you don't move your exploration token if you got the bottom result. This is a failed exploration, and you can try to explore it again on your next turn. But not on your very next action. Remember that you cannot repeat the same action more than once on the same turn. Your third action, also available at a port, is to visit that port's market. Draw a total of 3 cards from the top of the market deck or anywhere in the market discard pile. Look through those cards, choose the one you wish to purchase, and then discard the other 2 face up in either order. You must now pay the gold cost for that market item back to the bank and place the card below its relevant slot of your ship board. Market items will always give you an upgrade on the statistic of the matching colour of the port. So for example, the red port will always give you repair benefits and so on. There is no limit to the number of market items you can collect, either of the same or different types, across the course of the game. There are 3 different types of market cards. Ones which say discard are resolved once and then discarded. Cards which say reload can be activated multiple times but with restriction. Upon activating, place a league die matching the number next to the reload. At the start of each of your turns, you'll reduce all of your league dice down by 1 step, or remove it if it's showing on 1. A reload card cannot be activated if the league die is still on it. Finally, if a card neither says discard nor reload, then it is constantly available for use. Once you're done, place your market token next to the port. You can't visit that port's market again until you've visited another port's market elsewhere on the board. The fourth action is trade. If 2 or more ships are in the same hex, then one action by either of them may open up a trade between them. The ships may then exchange any number of cards or gold between each other. The fifth action is to attack an enemy ship, and you can attack a ship that is in the same hex as you, or within your ship's range, which by default is 1 hex, but which can be increased by certain cards. To resolve, the attacker rolls dice equal to cannons, and the defender rolls dice equal to hull. If the attacker rolls more successes than the defender, then the defender loses integrity equal to the difference. Here, the naval ship has 1 integrity, so it would be sunk. If the defender rolls more successes than the attacker, then nothing happens. The same process is resolved when an enemy ship attacks during the event phase. Here, the naval ship would roll 3 for cannons, and the player would roll 3 hull for defense. Here, it's the player who would lose the difference in integrity. Losing battles, negative effects when exploring, and even some market cards are ways that you can go backwards on your statistics and integrity. To deal with this, the 6th available action is to repair. Choose any one of the 5 statistics, and then repair by a number of steps equal to your repair statistic. You can't split the repair numbers between multiple statistics, and you cannot repair a statistic above its starting value. So here the options are to repair hull to 3, to repair cannons to 2, or to repair integrity to 6. It's also important to note that your ship cannot be sunk during Act 1 of the game. If ever your integrity were to reduce to or below 0, then instead choose any one of the other 4 statistics and go down 1 step, regardless of how many steps below 0 you would have gone. The converse is also true. If ever you were to lose 1 or more of a statistic and had nothing to lose, you would instead lose exactly 1 integrity. The 7th action is Bolster. Choose one of your 4 statistics and place a league die marked 1 next to it. There can only be 1 such die per statistic. On any future action, before making a roll in that statistic, you may spend that bolster to add 1 success to the roll. So here, for example, rolling 2 dice and adding 1 success, a total of 5. You could also spend a repair bolster to add 1 to the repair value when taking that action, or spend a sail bolster to add 1 to your movement range for this action. The 8th action, available only if you share a space with a shipwreck, is to explore that shipwreck. Shipwrecks result in you making exploration rolls, much like the explore cards. However, they are higher danger and higher reward. So you may call on one other player's help. Choose any one player who is within 4 hexes of the shipwreck, and that player immediately and for free moves to the shipwreck. Draw the top shipwreck card and then make a roll using all of the statistic for the active player and half of that statistic rounded down for the inactive player. You'll then resolve the success or failure, splitting any rewards or consequences however you wish between the 2 players. Shipwrecks are one of the major ways, although not the only ways, to gain treasure in the game. Treasure cards are items which are more powerful than those you'll find in the market decks, and a ship may hold no more than 2 treasures. Each treasure has 2 parts, a general effect at the top which applies to whoever holds it, and an ability upgrade, which applies only if you are the player who has that ability card on your ship. Each of these abilities refers to the Act 2 ability, which is what will be in place when you fight the Kraken. and so it can be good for your team's chances to use the trade action to get these treasures in the right hands. Once you've explored a shipwreck, there's nothing more to find, so remove the shipwreck token and then roll a compass die to determine where the new shipwreck will be found. If you roll your current space or the space containing the other shipwreck, then place it 2 steps clockwise from what you rolled. The 9th and final action, available only if you're at the Smuggler's Den, is to smuggle, and to do this, simply take 2 gold. And so those are your 9 actions. To sail, explore a port, use the market at a port, trade, attack an enemy, repair your ship, bolster one of your stats, explore a shipwreck, or smuggle gold. As we saw before, on any turn that you move through an open sea hex, you'll draw an open sea card and resolve that. At the end of your turn, if you haven't taken a move action, but you are in an open sea hex, then you draw an open sea card at that point as well. In this way, the only way you can avoid drawing an open sea card on your turn is to spend the whole turn in a port or its shallows. Act 1 ends immediately when you go to draw an event card and none are present, or when the 3rd Kraken upgrade card is drawn from the open sea deck. It's now time to face the Kraken. To set up Act 2, clear the board and flip it over to the Whirlpool. The Whirlpool is split into 8 octants and 5 rings. In the very centre of the board is the Kraken's head. The next ring is called the Eye, the following ring is called League 1, then League 2, then League 3, and these are identified by the numbers on the League dice. The octants are delineated by these golden lines, so here is the north, northeast, east, southeast, and so on around the compass. The 6 hexes in the Eye also each belong to 1 octant, with only the north and south octants having no Eye hex. Any combination between a compass point and a league number is a 1 to 4 hex region called an octant league. So, for example on this die roll, Southeast Octant League 1 would represent these 2 hexes. All of this terminology will be important for the rest of setup and gameplay during Act 2. Players keep all their statistics, gold and cards and flip their ability cards over to the Act 2 side. Now set up the Kraken. This is the Kraken's life and you'll have set this based on your player count at the start of the game. Here you'll find any Kraken upgrades that you made during Act 1. The Kraken has tentacles equal to 2 times the number of players in the game, and each begins with 3 health, so place a D4 in each of these slots to signify that health. Now strengthen the Kraken further by revealing and resolving the 3 black spot cards which were drawn at the start of the game. The top half of the card will give you a condition under which you must add a new Kraken modifier to the Kraken, and you'll draw those from the open sea deck. The bottom half of the card gives you 1 or more conditions through which you must add 1 to the Kraken's life. Resolve all 3 black spot cards, but do not give the Kraken more than 5 upgrades. All decks of cards and their discard piles, except for the Whirlpools, can now go back to the box. Each player now rolls a pair of coordinate dice and spawns their ship into 1 hex of the matching octant league. The Kraken's tentacles will spawn at the start of the first round. You're now ready to play Act 2. Act 2 is played in rounds, and each round is played in 4 phases. First, you'll draw and resolve a Whirlpool card. Then each of the Kraken's tentacles will attempt to attack the players. Then the Kraken itself will attempt to attack the players. And finally, each player takes a turn attempting to attack the Kraken. The players win the game if they kill the Kraken. The players lose if all of their ships are sunk, or if they go to draw a Whirlpool card and none remain. First, you'll draw a Whirlpool card and resolve it top to bottom. The first line shows you the direction of the current, how far each player is swept, and whether they are drawn towards the Kraken or pushed away. Here you would move each ship one space anti-clockwise and then draw each ship one space closer to the Kraken. Next, if it's the first round, then check the text to see if it gives you tentacle spawning instructions. If it does, then follow these to put the tentacles on the board for the first time. Otherwise, spawn all tentacles with a roll of the coordinates dice and always place the tentacle in the furthest space in the direction of the current of the rolled octant league. The numbers present on each tentacle's base let you cross-reference the tentacle against its health on the Kraken board. Tentacles can spawn in the same place as a ship, triggering breach damage, which I'll talk about shortly. But they cannot spawn in the same place, and will move to the next space away from the current. You'll now resolve the text effect, which, like for the events, could be resolved now or could be a constant effect for the rest of the round. Next, the tentacles attack, and you'll resolve each tentacle's turn in numerical order. Firstly, determine which ship the tentacle will target, and this will be the closest ship. If tied, you'll look to the ship that's in the same octant, and if still tied, go through this sequence until you break that tie. If it's still tied, it attacks whoever is earliest in turn order. The tentacle now moves 2 spaces towards that ship, stopping once it occupies the same space. Anytime a tentacle enters or spawns in a space containing a ship, it does tentacle breach damage, instantly reducing that ship's integrity by 1 point without a roll. This doesn't apply if the tentacle begins its activation in the same hex as a ship. Then the tentacle attacks in the usual way, its base statistics being a range of 2 and 4 attack dice. Although remember to apply any modifiers from your Kraken upgrade cards. Once all tentacles are resolved, now the Kraken attacks, and this does not occur in the usual way. Instead, the Kraken attacks an entire portion of the board all at once. At the start of the game, it will attack a total of 5 different octants. And to resolve this, roll 3 compass dice, re-rolling until you get 3 unique rolls. These are the 3 octants which are not hit on this round. The Kraken's range increases as the game goes on. At 4 players, for example, every 5 health the Kraken loses results in 1 compass die being removed. That is, increasing the number of octants hit by 1. To do this, you'll need to count down the number of life lost from the adjusted starting life after the black spot cards. Once you've done the rolls, all players who are in the hit octants will suffer a number of hits, so here it's just red and grey. The Kraken doesn't roll for its attack, it simply deals hits based on how close the victim ship is to the eye of the Whirlpool. The player does a hull roll against those hits in the usual way, and loses the difference in integrity. Once all of these attacks are done, it's now time for the players to take their turns. Once again, you'll take turns in turn order, and you take 3 actions per turn. However, you're now allowed to repeat the same action multiple times on the same turn, and there are now only 4 actions available. Repair and trade work exactly the same way that they do in Act 1. Sail is similar, but has a couple of restrictions as you move around the Whirlpool. You'll still have as many sail points to spend as your sail statistic. But sailing with the current costs you 1 sail, sailing 1 space against the current costs you 2 sail, and leaving the eye of the Whirlpool costs you 3 sail, but allows you to exit at any point that is adjacent to anywhere on the eye. The last action is to attack. You can attack a tentacle, and this works the same way as attacking rival ships in Act 1. The tentacle rolls for defense in the usual way, and you'll track its health using these d4s. If a tentacle is killed, remove it from the board and reduce the Kraken's overall health by 1 point. You cannot take the Kraken's final health this way. You can also attack the Kraken's head, if you are either in the Eye or League 1 and you're in an octant with no tentacles. These restrictions apply irrespective of the range of your weapons, and so right now the only ship that could attack the head is purple. Green and grey have tentacles in their octants, and red is too far from the head. The player rolls attack dice in the usual way, and the Kraken rolls for defense. Any hits are reduced from the Kraken's health. Each time the Kraken's health is reduced to one of these spaces with the tentacles around it, then up to 2 defeated tentacles will respawn on the board with their 3 starting health. You'll choose the respawn location with a roll of the coordinates dice in the usual way, but that tentacle will not move or attack on this turn. Through the entire second act, you can use any gold that you had left over from the first act to bribe your crew. And when you do this, you spend a gold to re-roll any one die from a roll you've just made. This does not cost one of your actions, and it's the only use for gold during the second act. However, even with this option available, the Kraken is tough, and you may find that your integrity is dropped below 1. Unlike in the first act, where you can put this damage on one of your other stats, in Act 2 this means you've sunk. The game is over for your ship, but not for your crew. Remove your cubes and flip your board over to the rescued deckhand's side. Keep your gold and cards nearby for now. Then take the 3 meeples in your colour. These represent your crew who've fallen into the ocean. Place 2 of them on your shipboard and place the 3rd onto the space where your ship sank. This 1 meeple represents all 3 of your crew. While you're floating in the water, you still take only 3 actions per turn, but you only have 2 options. The first is to swim, and you may only swim in the direction of the current. And your second is to board another player's ship if you're in the same space. A player whose ship is still floating can also spend an action to rescue the deckhands in the same space. Return the crew meeple to the board of the player whose ship has sunk, and place a cube matching the colour of the sunken ship on the rescuing player's ship. As reward for rescuing, the rescuer takes all of the sunken player's gold, which can be used on bribing crew there, and takes a random item or treasure card from that player's ship. A player can have more than 2 treasures by recovering treasures in this way. Any other items from the sunken ship are returned to the box. From now on, the rescued player takes a turn immediately before the rescuer, and during that turn is moving their own deckhands on the rescuer's ship. The ship on the sunken player's player board is meant to represent the deck of the rescuer's ship. On a turn, a rescued player has 9 actions, and those actions can be spent either moving a deckhand 1 step along the ship, or moving a deckhand down to the matching icon of its current space and doing the action printed here. For example, this deckhand just spent 3 actions, moving 2 steps and then moving to the repair slot in order to take a repair action on the rescuer's ship. The 9 actions can be split among the 3 deckhands in any combination you'd like. At the start of the player actions phase in each round, any deckhands who performed an action are returned to the start of the track, while any deckhands who are partway along the track remain where they were. If the rescuer's ship later sinks, then that player's board is also flipped over and both crews drop into the sea. The player who sunk second is still carrying gold and items for another rescuer to potentially get, but the original sunken player doesn't have anything left to give. The players lose if all ships are sunk, or if they go to draw a Whirlpool card and none remain. But if the Kraken's life is reduced to 0 or lower, then the Kraken is slain and the players win. The rulebook provides a number of different options for increasing or decreasing the difficulty of the game, such as by using more or fewer whirlpools or black spots, modifying the Kraken's starting health, or removing some of the friendlier events from the Act 1 deck. There are also quick setup rules if you don't want to play Act 1 and get straight into the Kraken battle. The rulebook will tell you how many market cards to draw in order to simulate having played Act 1. There's also modified setup for solo play if players wish to play with a single ship. And that's how to play Davy Jones Locker, The Kraken Wakes.
Check out the project page of the game. We'll put the link in the description below so you can check it out. If you find this video useful, please help us by hitting that like button and subscribe to the Dice Tower if you haven't already done so.
And if you have any questions, comments or feedback, please leave that in the comments section below.
And thanks for watching and see you next time.